Hi, everybody, and welcome back to 10 Minutes with Griffin. I'm your host, Griffin Bridgers, and this is episode 250, which is an important milestone for me, but it may not be for you as the listener. But I'll get into a little bit of my secret sauce today, just because part of my goal with this series is to inspire others to look at thought leadership in different creative ways and put yourself out there in terms of building a name, building a brand, building a practice. So with that, I'm going to kind of show you a little bit of behind the scenes on the making of an episode and a little bit of what's next as well. Now, even though I'm not going to talk about tax or estate planning today, I want to emphasize again that this presentation is not intended to substitute for legal or tax advice and is provided for educational purposes only. So, I'll never forget that on July 12th, 2020, I was out walking over lunch, and at the time, I'd been toying with the idea of, building a name, building a brand, trying to create this video type of series that would capture my passion for speaking and teaching. And I was mired in the depths of perfectionism. It was difficult for me to get started because I felt like in the field of law, especially, you have to really be intentional about how thorough you might be in the way you present a subject and what points you hit. And as a lot of you can probably imagine, you take the approach that you use for representing a client and roll that into your own thought leadership, whether it be an article or a video or something like that, because you worry that if you don't hit every single point or if you omit one key thing, you're going to get those angry emails back that, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Why didn't you think of this or why didn't you think of that? So I walked through about, I'd say several of those types of scenarios and experimented with a lot of videos that I just couldn't get right and couldn't hit all the points on. And eventually, I came to a key realization that nobody will care about the first 250 videos. And with that, the very next day, July 13th of 2020, I started out with episode 1 of this series, which at the time was called The 10th of an Hour, but has now evolved into 10 Minutes with Griffin. But as I'm going to talk about in a minute, I think it's time to get rid of that type of naming convention and focus more on certain elements of what I bring to the table through this video series. But I'll talk about that in a minute. What you're probably more interested in is how I make a video. Well, I can show some of the mechanics behind it. What I can't show is how I might randomly brainstorm a topic, because I can't put what goes on in my head into a video or onto paper. Oftentimes there's something I'm researching or working on, but while I'm here, I thought it might be helpful to exit out of the PowerPoint and maybe give you some ideas if you are indeed a creator in this space. For one, you can always find IRS material. So here, just Google IRS written determinations, and guess what? Now you have this gigantic list of private letter rulings that come out every single week. So if you really want to talk about tax, there is a lot of fodder here for material that you might have. And with that, you can somehow look at this UILC to determine maybe different things that you might want to look at. So if you want to look at, say, retirement plan assets, you could type in 401, and guess what? Now you have a bunch of stuff on retirement asset planning and maybe distribution planning and things of that nature. Let's say maybe you also are concerned about Code Section 2036 and how that affects estate planning. Type that into your UILC, and now guess what? You now have a bunch of private letter rulings dealing with 2036 issues for estate tax and generation skipping transfer tax. So that gives you some ideas. If you don't want to focus on tax, there's a lot of ways you can find recent case summaries from around the country. One site I tend to use is Justia. So if you type in Justia Trusts and Estates Opinions, then it will give you a lot of material. So here you go. Justia Trust and Estates opinion summaries. And by no means am I promoting this service or anything. I'm just using this to give you an idea of some of the things I use. And you can see here also there are sometimes tax cases like Nelson versus Commissioner. I did a slide on this the other day dealing with the crux of this, which was the wording of a formula clause using the value determined by a qualified appraiser within 90 days of the gift versus the value is finally determined for federal gift tax purposes, and that wording using the former instead of the latter was enough to have the IRS and the tax court disregard a formula clause. But that aside, you can see that from all over the country there are some key cases here on a variety of estate planning types of issues that create material as well. And I highlight this to show you just how much doesn't go into my videos. There's a lot of things I could be covering that I'm not, and that's where you come in, and I will talk about that in a minute. But jumping back to our slides, what I do is I take that material and try to create a PowerPoint based on a template. So what I try to do is between research and review and creating a PowerPoint, that should take 30 to 60 minutes in my morning ideally, but then it comes time to record. So I use screen capture software called Bandicam. So within that allows me to record my screen as you see it right now. I can scroll through the slides using slideshow presentation in PowerPoint, and you can see right here I have running in the background Bandicam, which is recording this video and my speech in real time, which is minimized in the background. And then once I have my video laid down, there's another piece of software called Bandicut that's complimentary, and I can just go in to cut and find a variety of videos. So you can see I have, let's see, this one that I put together on November 3rd. So I usually record a count-in intro of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I start speaking. So I can press play and hear that. And you'll hear that in the background maybe, I don't know. And there, you can see that I finish my count-in around 7.6 seconds. I can go a little bit after and trim to 7.7, and then at the outro trim backwards a little bit to the point where the slideshow was just where we were just before I exited out of the slideshow, and then hit start, and that gives me my cut video, which can then be uploaded to YouTube and then perhaps shared on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. I used to share on Twitter a bit. I experimented with that. I didn't get much traction out of that. LinkedIn has created my greatest traction so far, but there's a lot that I have not done on the sharing front, which is where you come in as well. So with that being said, I think it's important to jump back into my slides and kind of share with you where I'm going. So the vision I've had all along, even before I started this, was to start one of the first, I wouldn't call it the first, but the first, I guess, video-focused estate planning media companies. Now, there's a lot of people out there that specialize in continuing ed. There's a lot of people out there that specialize in marketing and promotion, but very few really focus on thought leadership itself and on career improvement. So I'm not attached to this name, but my ultimate vision is to start Bridger's EP Media, EP for estate planning, which I'm still playing with the name, but ultimately the mission and vision is to harness the power of education, creativity, and storytelling in order to improve the careers of practitioners in the fields of law, accounting, and wealth management. So moving forward, I'm going to continue the videos, but I'm not necessarily going to tag them with 10 minutes with Griffin, because as you saw, as I was cutting a video a minute ago, it had crept up to 15 minutes. So a lot of people have limited attention spans, and committing myself to a certain time frame does a disservice to the listener and to me when it comes time to create a video with one take, which is what I aim to do in most cases. So with that being said, what I want to do is open up this platform, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, to other people who want to talk about tax and estate planning. And I'm providing this to show you that you don't necessarily need to lean on me to do so. I'm sure if you wanted to, you could copy exactly what I'm doing and go out and do it on your own. So I encourage you to start if you want, but I also think a rising tide raises all boats. So if you want to go that route, I'm happy to collaborate. I think you get a lot more traction as you build a user base off of sharing across channels. And that's what I want to do, whether you want to start out and quote unquote compete against me or even just get your name out there. I can't promise a lot of leverage out of it, but what I can say is if you want to present your story or your education on my channel, I absolutely want to open up this YouTube channel to other people who want to build their name and build their brand. And that's what I plan to do. And I plan to open up the storytelling element as well, because while I want to be an educator, I want to encourage creativity and storytelling to motivate you as well. I've long wanted to be a motivational speaker, and it's hard to do that just because so many people are doing that, and motivation has its own issues, but while I'm not Tony Robbins, what I can say is Tony Robbins has a really good quote he uses a lot, which is success breeds clues. And for a lot of you out there, what I hope to do is to put thought leaders in front of you, not just to present educational topics, but to tell their story, like I have, of how they got started and how they got to where they are now. With the key question being, too, that it's easy to be motivated by that, but it's also easy to listen to somebody else's story and come up with an excuse as to why that wouldn't work for you. Why, as loaded as this term might be, why you're a special snowflake and why nothing else that anybody is doing will work for you specifically because of your individual circumstances, which I respect, but my hope is to create a series, not necessarily of podcasts, but just of interviews, to show that success breeds clues and to show you what you can do with your practice and what potential is, or what potential there may be, but based around the question of, if you're the person giving the advice or telling the story, what would you tell to the listener out there who says, this won't work for me? So with that being said, I've talked enough. I think the brand 10 Minutes with Griffin is officially retired. From this point on, I'm going to really just focus on what you need to know in various topical areas. It may be shorter than 10 minutes, maybe longer than 10 minutes, but I really want to open up the world of education in tax and estate planning to help practitioners improve their careers through marketing, education, branding, and otherwise. So with that being said, if you want to participate in this project, or if you have questions or topic suggestions, you can email those to me at griffin.bridgers@gmail.com with the caveat, as always, that I cannot give legal or tax advice in response to your questions. But for those of you who have listened this far and have listened to my past videos, I thank you so much for your support. I look forward to bringing content to you in the future, and for those of you who are interested, I look forward to building relationships by co-creating with you. So, if you want to work together, please reach out. And if I can be a resource for you, if you want to go this road on your own and build your own type of project like I have, feel free. I'm happy to be a sounding board and help you out as I can. But thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in my future content.